this section, we'll log in as the assessor and take a look at the functionality that is available for that role. So we have the assessor example here is Rachel Taylor. So I'm just going to log in as Rachel just now. As an assessor in the system, you will also have student access. So when you're given an elevated role, you will have access to the basic student level as well to complete your own courses and any requirements that you need to do. The most important thing is the elevated access is done through the top right-hand corner. So if you click on your name in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the access levels that you have. Rachel here is an assessor, so we can click on the Assessor tab. And then we'll be looking at the system through the assessor functionality. So we'll be able to perform any actions that we need to as an assessor. You can see here the competence that I applied for assessment on earlier, logged in as John Smith, has pulled through, and Rachel Taylor has been asked as added as an assessor for that requirement. So Rachel can assess John here on the requirement that's pulled through. There's also an example competence in here where the verifier has said verification issues found, so that will be listed on the assessments tab for the assessor. You'll be able to see where a verifier has identified issues. If I click on needs assessment for the incident investigations, one which we sent across earlier, the assessor will see a very similar look to a very similar layout as the student does as well. So they see the full description, they see the suggested evidence, any relevant summary that has been provided by the candidate will be listed in here, and the assessor will have access to make notes. So this is notes that will be recorded against the assessment. So any statements you would like to write, the assessor can add in a note here. We can save that. There's no limit on the number of notes that you can create. This will act as an audit trail and will sit against the competence assessment in the system. Towards the bottom, as the assessor, you will see the evidence that has been provided, and you'll see the status as needs assessment. You do also have the options that the student have. You can add additional evidence to support the assessment for this candidate. That can be from your own assessor locker or uploading new evidence that you maybe have stored on your computer. Clicking on the drop-down arrow, we can actually download the file that has been provided as evidence, and we've got these two main options here, so approve or reject. It's important to approve and reject all pieces of evidence, so not all bits will be relevant. And this status here, approve or reject, doesn't ultimately deem the candidate competent or not competent. It doesn't affect overall status, but you should approve or reject all pieces of evidence. So once I've downloaded this, if as the assessor I'm happy and I believe that's enough, I'll click on approved, and the status will change against that piece of evidence. You'll notice here towards the top that the assessment still sits as in progress, so it didn't actually change the status as such of the assessment, and we still have our two main buttons. So as the assessor, once we've reviewed all of the evidence, we can deem the candidate competent, or we can select gaps identified. Clicking on gaps identified, you'll see that you're allowed to provide feedback to the user. So this will be sent in the comments box and will allow the user to review your feedback that you've suggested. You can edit that within here and then click send. The other option is candidate is competent. So if you're happy with the evidence, you can deem the candidate competent. That will then change the status of the application in the system to approved, and that will show as completed in all reports for administrators. The assessments tab is really where you will complete all of the assessments or all of the ones that require your attention. However, you will have the competence overview section where you can review any of the competencies that you have been added to an assessor on. So if you're looking to check the status of a specific competence, you can do that within here. You can click on the requirement. You can see how many users have been added to that requirement. You can see any support material that has been added to it. And you can also get a breakdown of each user that has been assigned. So in this case, it's just John Smith. He's yet to complete that, and there's no kind of trail of that one yet until the progress has been started. Just jumping on to assessment plans. So as the assessor, you can create a plan for a user. You can see here all of the users that you have access to will be within the list. And if we search for John Smith, because we're an assessor of John, he'll be available and we can create a plan. You can give the plan a title and a start and end date. So when do you want the user to focus on this plan? So we can say within the month of March, we would require you to complete the following competencies. So what we do is click Add Competence to then select the requirements from John's role that you want him to focus on. So we can pick the items that we would like John to complete. Once that has been created, you do have the option to print that. So you can get a printed copy of the assessment plan in PDF format. And that will show you exactly what you created with the elements that you selected. That will now pull through to John's profile as an assessment plan, and he'll also be able to see which requirements you've set as required through that start and end date. You've also, as the assessor, got options to edit the suggested evidence. So if you're looking for something specific, you can select the relevant evidence that you're looking for. The Assessor tab is designed to be really easy to use. So really, you've got those three main tabs. The main one being the Assessment tab, where you'll see all of the requirements that require your attention. And from there, we'll just move on to the verifier role.